All right, our second major type of tissue is going to be connective tissue. Now, this word connective can sometimes throw people off. They're like, oh, it connects things. No, not quite. The word connect you could kind of interpret to mean like runs throughout the whole body. This is actually the most widespread type of tissue, or the most abundant type of tissue. So, like I said, epithelial tissue is widespread, so is adipose. This is the one that's the most widespread. So we'll write that for location. I know it's kind of vague, but there's really no other way to go about that. We'll see some examples of locations when we go to the types of cells / organization though. And so let's then go into its function. So the functions of connective tissue involve things like providing framework for the body, storing fat and energy, which go hand in hand, transporting various substance, but we'll write gases because we're going to focus on that this year, transporting gases, and connective tissue provides insulation. So there's a couple of different functions of connective tissue. So when we say framework, we are referring to like cartilage, tendons, ligaments, all those little pieces that are kind of at play to connect our bones and muscles and help with movement. And so we're going to see some very different cell types and very different organizational patterns with connective tissue, unlike how they were all pretty similar in epithelial tissue, because we're going to see things like I just said, ligaments, tendons, cartilage, but then we're also going to see blood fall under connective tissue, and we're going to see bone fall under connective tissue. And so those are going to be, again, providing framework, the bone, and then transporting gases with blood. And we'll see fat cells. So they're a very wide range of different types of connective tissue cells. They don't look quite as clear-cut and similar as all the epithelial tissue organizational patterns do. So here we go. Let's take a look. First of all, something to note about connective tissue is that it's not really only made up of cells. It's actually going to be made up of cells, but then fibers, which is always just a weird word because fibers really are what they are. They're like thin segments of protein, things like that. Fibers and extracellular components. Embedded in fluid, often. Often, so we'll leave that word often, okay? So I'll give you an example of what I mean by like extracellular components in just a minute. So let's start off with our first type of cell, and that is going to be blood cells. So I'm going to draw some red blood cells. If you remember, they actually don't have a nucleus. They look kind of like a thumbprint cookie. That's what I always think of, those peanut butter ones. Like, oh, so good. But anyways, blood also has like white blood cells, which usually are just more circular or like, I don't know, amoeba looking like. And there's platelets in blood as well. That will be an example of an extracellular component. If you guys have ever seen platelets, like these little, they're always illustrated as little like white particles that are found in blood that help with clotting. That would be an extracellular component. So you can see like blood is, exactly what it says here. Fibers, extracellular components, and cells all embedded in fluid. And that is a tissue. So we'll label that blood. Okay, and blood, you can see, would be doing the function of transporting gases if we're looking at red blood cells. They carry oxygen and carbon dioxide to and from the body cells. Let's see, letter B. This is going to look super foreign, I think. and odd. And so we're just going to draw a dot in the center and some lines around it in layers. And so what I'm drawing here is the organization of a bone cell, surprisingly. We have these units repeating over and over and over and over again in bone. And within these units, there's cells, all different types of cells. We never really say bone cells because there's so many types of cells in bones, like osteoblasts, which build bone, and osteoclasts, which break down bone, and osteocytes, which live in these little holes here. So we have a bunch of different types of bone cells. But this will make more sense, this organization, when we get to Unit 2 and talk about the skeletal system. You'll refer back to this and it'll make more sense. But this is not a cell. This is the organization of bones, which encompasses many cells. And lastly, we will draw some big blob-looking like things. And you kind of want the nuclei to be randomly just placed wherever. And this is actually what fat cells look like. So they're really spaced out, not quite as tightly packed as these epithelial cells. You'll also hear these referred to as adipose tissue. Okay, so we'll look at these under the microscope as well.